out-of-control California prisons on lockdown amid rise in violence and contraband. Even California's prisons are going sideways. Let's get into it. Here we go. I was telling the story the other day. I went to Monroe Christian Elementary, grades 1 through 3. My dad played in a basketball league that would go in and play at the state penitentiary in Monroe. And he said that the doors closing was very ominous. He's inside playing. He said they did not call fouls. No foul calling. That was in the 70s. Dad was a good ball player. California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation has announced that all Level 3 and Level 4 facilities are now operating under a modified program. This decision comes in response to a troubling, I have concern about the increase in violent incidents targeting both staff and incarcerated individuals, as well as a rise in overdose cases and the discovery of contraband. Nothing new. But California, like everything else they've got going on there, wildfires, riots, housing costs, gasoline costs, cost of living, population exodus. Affected facilities include the California Medical Facility, California Men's Colony, California Correctional Institution, and several others across the state. A comprehensive investigation into these incidences is underway. I'm sure it is. And the modified program will remain in place until the review is complete. All right, guys. Had a bunch of wild stuff go on. And so now we got to bring it down. We're up here and we need to bring it down to this level. Modified lockdown will not affect essential medical care, legal proceedings, and other critical appointments. Meals will be delivered directly to housing units, and movement within the facilities, including access to showers, will be controlled and secure. They're on a real lockdown. Phone access, via path tablet communications, and in-person visitation will be suspended. Nothing in, nothing out. Hunger strike begins as California prisons hand down biggest restrictions since COVID. Nearly 24 state prisons last week imposed sweeping restrictions on their incarcerated population, including shutting off of all outside communication. Now hundreds of prisoners are reported to be on a hunger strike to protest the system's largest restriction since the pandemic. Corrections Department significantly limited the daily activities and movement of roughly 34,000 incarcerated people on June 12th in response to a recent uptick in violence, overdoses, contraband. Under the restrictions, incarcerated people are forced to remain primarily in their cell or dormitory. All in-person visitation, programming, phone access, that stuff has been suspended. Department did not say when the restrictions will end. Legal experts and advocates called the department's move drastic and said the approach is solitary confinement in all but name. Well, what else are you going to do? You got to drop that temperature, right? And it's a prison. So what else are you just going to, well, things are working out not so great. So we'll just have everybody running around as usual and we'll pretend that we're coming up with some kind of, solution to this. Nah, you got to get some time. Let things kind of cool out. Let things kind of calm down, right? And then you lift the restrictions. It's a very lonely space to be in. Well, it's not supposed to be one of these situations. Prison isn't supposed to be one of these good, feel-good situations, right? Addiction is real. Mental health issues are real, and they are exacerbated by these lockdowns. So then you just let everybody run around. And that guy's over there has got schizophrenia, but we'll let him out. Corrections Secretary Jeff McComber said in a written statement that the department has an obligation to ensure public safety for staff, incarcerated individuals, and the communities. You got a bunch of bad apples. You had some real riots go on in California. I looked for video footage, but of course there really wasn't much because stuff internally that gets cleaned up and just gets taken down on YouTube. We recognize the concerns of the incarcerated and their families and how this impacts participation in rehabilitation program and visiting. Well, it's not forever. It's until they get a handle on this, which who knows how long that could take. Meanwhile, folks are on lockdown. That would suck, right? I mean, what little freedom you do have is basically taken away. Sucks. But also, what are you going to do to control the situation? Remember, this is prison. This is state prison. The department published a press release late Tuesday that listed a number of armed assaults on staff members, armed battery on incarcerated people, and several riots in the weeks leading up to the restrictions. You know what? You know what's crazy? Sounds like what's going on the streets of LA. Right? Assaults on staff members, armed battery, riots. That's going on the outside. We should lock down LA. You guys have to stay in your houses. Sorry, we got COVID coming again. And the COVID is a bunch of nonsense protesting. Yeah. But did not attribute those incidences to specific prisons. So you got a bunch of stuff going on. It's happening out there. I mean, it's something that we're not proud of. We have concern. And we're trying to get our hands around what we're going to do here. Families of incarcerated people say the restrictions are cruel and collective punishment. They got to drop the hammer on somebody. It's going to be these prisons. It's what they're doing. Angel Torres said it feels unbearable to have no contact with his father. And again, that sucks. But had he not committed a crime that he was convicted of with a sentencing, he wouldn't be here. Make good decisions. He was incarcerated at Folsom State Prison. Remember Folsom State Prison Blues? That was Johnny Cash? Is that right? I think so, yeah. I wonder if he's safe and sound, said Torres. The department is playing propaganda warfare. It sounds like they're just on lockdown. They are professionals of abstract, obtuse, and vague statements that are generated to keep families in the dark. That's not their sole purpose. Hey, let's rock and F with the families of the inmates. Let's do that. How can we do that? They're not sitting around doing that, right? How can we just really F with the lives of loved ones that didn't commit terrible crimes, that are wondering where their dad is, their mom is, their whatever is? They're not doing that. They're doing what they have to do to kind of, all right, we got to stop this sequence of violence, this sequence of just nonsense going on. In prisons across the country, lockdowns are becoming increasingly common. You keep hearing about that due to staffing shortages. So that is one of the enormous things to overcome here. You don't have enough people that want to work in the prison system. Shocker. Ugh, terrible. One of my now ex-wife's grandfathers worked in the Monroe State Pen where my dad played basketball. And it was rough. He just flat out said it was rough. So all kinds of stuff that he wouldn't tell. I was in my 20s at that time when he was alive. He didn't really talk about it, but you could he was a hardened guy. I mean, he was an old school prison guard. And just, there was no effing around. There was none of this, I feel good about things. He just dropped the hammer, right? I mean, because that's what you did. He lived out in the country, grew up in the country, north of Seattle. Things were different. You work in the prison system, it's pretty black and white. Yeah, all right, we're going to toe the line or you're not. I'm going to beat you to a pulp. Okay, that's how they ran the prisons. Now you've got all this, let's feel good. This is not right. California, the Corrections Department has imposed broad restrictions on incarcerated people twice in the span of 3 months. Prisons report surge in violence. Last restrictions on March 8th were placed on nearly a dozen prisons due to a surge in violence against staff and incarcerated people. They ended on April 11th, all right? During that time, at least 3 incarcerated people were killed, and 1 officer reported was attacked. Okay, so people are being murdered. I mean, that's not uncommon in prison. You will read that. If you follow enough news, you will come across that. It'll be a thing. There was an incident of violence, and it happened like this. They were in the dining hall. They were in the yard. They were in the wherever. They did something. We're not sure what it was, or they, didn't, honor a contract, whatever it might have been, and they got snuffed. stuff happens, right? In recent years, the department has come under fire for its approach to managing violent incidents and contraband. Of course it does. California. California has a problem with everything that's reasonable. It's just, here's reasonable. Let's go this way. Just continuously. It was criticized by a Sacramento County Superior Court, don't really care, for creating violence when it merged incarcerated people from the general population with those who were previously protected, such as informants, bypassing established procedures in the process. I don't know the ins and outs of, prison regulations, rules, and protocol. I just don't. Following year, an oversight agency found that drugs continued to get inside California prisons during the pandemic when public health official protocols prohibited visits. How were they getting in? Who has access? Let's see, the guards, the personnel, the employees. Couldn't be them because they're working for the prison system. They wouldn't be benefiting from bringing drugs in, would they? Would they? Think about that for a second. Of course. Not that hard to figure out, right? It's an open secret that staff are the primary vector of contraband into the prison. She said a lockdown may be a useful tool if it's done in a limited way, but the department's blanket policy appears to be hard to defend. Well, the thing is, they don't care. This is what they're doing. This is what they're going with. You don't like it? Why don't you go on a little protest, right? It's a blunt instrument when they should be using a scalpel. Don't you love it when people make metaphors and you're like, okay, all right, that's silly. Question is the relationship between the ill that they're trying to wrestle with, and the strategy that they're trying to adapt to address it. What a bunch of nonsense. I remain unconvinced that a lockdown of this scale is necessary to address this problem. So what would you address there then? You got a bunch of riots going on. You got people being murdered. You got a whole bunch of drugs coming in. What are you going to do? I'm listening. Just throw out something. Let me know in the comments. What would you do? I'll be curious. Let me know. Comment. Hunger strike in Salinas. One day after the Corrections Department implemented the restrictions, incarcerated people at Salinas Valley Prison formally declared a hunger strike. Perfect. That's great. All right. You're not eating taxpayer-funded food anymore. That's terrible. Action arises in response to persistent and unlawful practices by California. Yada, yada. This protest is not rooted in defiance, but in our firm demand to adhere to the obligations of the Constitution, California Penal Code, and Title 15. Yada, 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 yada. I'm so bored. Corrections spokesperson Terry Hardy said the department has procedures to monitor and evaluate hunger strikes. That dude over there is looking pretty hungry. He's on a hunger strike. There, we just monitored it. Are you going to die anytime soon? No? You want some water with no food? Okay. All right. Hunger strike. I'm just not going to eat. That's terrible. What a terrible way to go. Like, that Chris McCandless, remember with the magic bus up in Alaska? Probably ate some berries and died because he couldn't get across a river that flooded in spring. Got super weak. Yeah, not good. Not good. Brooke Terpstra, a member of the anti-prison group Oakland Abolition and Solidarity. Anytime I see the word solidarity, I think communist. I really do. I think communist. I think comrade and communist and solidarity. Estimated that upwards of 500 people are participating in the strike. Boy, that's a lot of money we're saving on food, isn't it? Yeah. He suspects incarcerated people at other prisons with restrictions will join. Okay. All right. We'll see how long they last. Get pretty hungry not eating. All hunger strikes are notable, but this is a major occurrence. Department, kind of like No Kings, like that was a major occurrence. 75,000 people did the whole protest thing here in Washington. And then after it was over, they immediately left and went home, wherever home was. Interesting. A lot of folks think it's because they were paid. That's why the No Kings protest had so many people. They were paid. Because there's not enough people that want to go out on a Saturday. No Kings. No secret police. No. Absolutely silly. Just wildly silly. Violence in California prisons prompts contraband sweeps in 21 facilities. Yeah, we've got possible overdoses. There were 3 attempted homicides on peace officers and 9 on inmates. You've got shenanigans. You got a bunch of shenanigans going on, and you got to do something. Lock her down. It's literally about the only thing they can do. You think they can put these folks into temporary therapy? All right, guys, we've thought about it. We have concerns about your safety and the safety of others and the safety of the prison community, safety of the guards. Let's just talk this out. Let's talk it out. How are you feeling today? What goes through your mind when, you've witnessed an attempted homicide on one of your fellow guards? Are you happy about that? Are you concerned? What way do your feelings go? It's not what we're doing in prison. Additionally, there are a total of 3 riots. Okay. All right. Anytime you have these stories and you have a bunch of knuckleheads saying, this is unfair, I'm surprised the ACLU hasn't gotten involved, right? And then you drill down. Okay, so we've got homicides, we've got guards, attempted homicides, you got inmates dying, and you got riots. You got 3 riots that nearly 170 inmates participated in. Okay, so wide-scale riots. And you want to do something else? What else do you want to do? Again, do you want to sit down and have a kumbaya moment and we can talk it out and just a big circle jerk and, it's great. Don't think so. Prison officials have further reported 31 armed cases of battery against staff, 140 cases without weapons. Just There were 7 cases of armed assault on prison staff and 35 unarmed assaults. So I don't know what the normal statistics are, but I've been following this one from a little bit. The story's been out there for a week or 2. And then they just recently, went with this. All right, boys, got to lock her down. Lock her down. Where inmates are concerned, the release stated that there were 25 cases of armed battery and 109 cases of battery that did not involve the use of a weapon. All right, you've got some homemade shivs. Look at that. Yeah, you got a little wrapped, whatever that is, with some kind of thing on the end, a pointy thing. Boy, that's a nice long blade there, isn't it? That's a good one. That one's got a fatter handle, though. That one... God, what is this one made out of? Almost looks like a metal or a plastic. I take the one on the bottom. Which one would you take if you were a prisoner and if you were an inmate and you had to defend yourself? Let's go with that. Defense, right? Take that bottom one. Although, what if it's made out of something other than metal? Because this is metal. That's definitely metal, but harder to hold. It's got a thin handle. I have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm just looking at this going, good Lord. During sweeps for contraband, prison officials reported confiscating the following. Is there more on this? I think there is. Oh, yeah. There we go. All right, 7 inches long. That's a nice long shiv, right? We got cell phones. We got a bunch of cell phones. Huh, interesting. Yeah, not but more cell phones. What are those? Are those zip drives up top left? Can't really tell. Yeah. All right. Okay. Oh, here we go. All right. Some of the sweeps: 53 improvised weapons, 66 cell phones, 24 syringes, 155 of illicit items, including controlled substances, drugs, escape tools, metal stock, and other banned materials. Hey, you got an escape tool. What are you doing with that? To safely conduct the contraband sweeps, prison officials limited inmates' access to certain areas inside the facilities, allowing for daily cell and bunk searches in housing units, canine searches for drugs and cell phones, and searching mail for contraband. I mean, what else are you going to do? You going to interview them? Hey, do you have any weapons in your cell? Do you got any weapons? You got any drugs? You got any drugs? I don't know what the solution is for all this, but it's just not a shocker. What's interesting is that this is happening in California prisons. It's not happening elsewhere at the moment. Right? Are they feeling the angst of No Kings protests, of all these other ridiculous protests that are, kind of really getting things going? Not really sure. But the fact that it's happening in California, it couldn't be happening to a nicer state, could it? I mean, a state that is really getting ahead of the curve here on a lot of stuff. Fourth largest economy in the world. If the state of California was a country, it'd be fourth largest economy. But it's got some issues. Now we can add prison rioting and violence, contraband, drug possession. Drugs being sold by the guards. But that's all over. I mean, that's every state, right? It's just that in California, they're having to lock them down because it's so bad. It's so bad. Like the rest of California's issues, so bad. And what do folks in California do in response? Leadership? Deny. You know what? We got a little blip here on our prison system. This kind of thing goes up and goes down, and it happens all the time. This is a way for us to control any of the concerns that we have. Obviously, there's a lot more work to do. Don't you love that statement? There's more work to do. I don't think there's much more here. Inmates at Salinas Valley State Prison launch hunger strike over their policies. You got us locked down in our cells and we don't like it. Therefore, we're going to go on hunger strike. We're going to show you. We're going to get really skinny. We're just not going to eat. And we're going to show you. I've always thought that not eating until you die. Sorry. I'll take the Twinkie. I'll take two. The actual Hostess Twinkie. Yeah. All right. That's it for me. Thanks so much for being here. I'll catch up with you on the next one. Bye for now.